everyone, how's it going? It's That Nerd Ryan here, and today we're going to be talking about why the first three phases of the MCU worked. We're getting very close to finishing the cinematic universe spiel that we've been talking about with DC and Fox and Sony and so on. So we're going to finish up with the MCU, but we're going to break it into two parts because there's two very distinct versions of the MCU now. We have the first three phases, aka the Infinity Saga, and we now have the Multiverse Saga. We'll be talking about the Multiverse Saga hopefully next week, unless a trailer or something drops. But this week we're going to be talking about the Golden Age of Cinematic Universes, aka the Golden Age of Superhero Movies, aka the Infinity Saga. So this one encapsulates about 9 years of 9 to 10 years, of the superhero genre, and Marvel dominated. Starts out with Iron Man, then leads up to Avengers, which then leads up to Age of Ultron and Civil War, which then leads up to Infinity War and Endgame. After Endgame, we get one more movie, then a lot more falling off. So we're going to kind of look today and see why it was so successful and the cultural impact that it had. So with that, let's get into it. So Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, and Thor were by far not household names in 2008. When people would think superheroes, they would think Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, Superman. They wouldn't think of these four characters. But a little independent company decided to release a movie called Iron Man, which ended up being great and phenomenal and kind of, in a sense, defining the superhero genre. I mean, it came out basically right around the time that The Dark Knight came out, so that was also another really big time for superhero movies in general, and a big win for Batman. So superhero movies at that time kind of became, let's be more real world and serious, where you had the semi-campiness of the Spider-Man movies, the wackiness of the X-Men movies, so on and so forth. The Dark Knight trilogy really made it where realism was important. So the first Iron Man and basically all of Phase 1, even though you had these gods and giant creatures and stuff like that, it still was surrounded in realism. Iron Man definitely was surrounded in realism. Iron Man 2, Captain America, the only outlier kind of being Thor and the Incredible Hulk. But what was revealed with Iron Man was that there was more to come. We got teased the Avengers Initiative, and at that time we didn't know what that meant. We knew that the Avengers were coming, which was the Marvel Justice League, but we didn't have any idea on actors or anything like that. Then Incredible Hulk, ran by a completely different company, comes out and reveals Iron Man popping up there. So then people would speculate, okay, the upcoming Captain America and Thor movies are probably going to have something to do with it. Iron Man 2 is going to have Black Widow. I was actually back then, I was told Black Cat. So people didn't know fully the scope of this. So people were thinking maybe Spider-Man's going to show up in it. Maybe the Fantastic Four or the X-Men, because Marvel and Universal are different studios. What's to stop Marvel from working with Sony, Marvel from working with Fox, Marvel from working with so on and so forth. So we had a little fumble of a recast. Other than that, Phase 1 was solid, and it revealed that we are in a much bigger universe now with these movies. It ends with Avengers for Phase 1, bringing our team together, and then also revealing more's to come, basically. So with that, Phase 2 was introduced basically as the fallout to Phase 1. We get sequels for almost every Avenger, and every Avenger from Phase 1 shows up in Phase 2, albeit one kind of does for just a second. And in talking about that, I'm excluding Age of Ultron and Civil War. But yeah, with that, we only get introduced to a bunch of new characters, but two new franchises in that, being the Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man. With that, we get to kind of see more character build up on the core Avengers, as well as like what they've been up to and what they're doing. We get to see Iron Man deal with post-traumatic stress of that. We get to see Thor and Loki deal with the fallout of being brothers during a major terrorist attack on a city. We have the reveal that S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually Hydra for Captain America, which is a big implication and probably one of the best plot twists in our generation, in my opinion. We also get to see introductions of other side characters in these franchises, such as Falcon, who is no longer a side character and is now getting his own movie as Captain America. We also get introduced with other like factors, such as the Infinity Stones. While it was sort of possibly hinted at, we don't know if it was hinted or if it was retconned, in Phase 1, these Infinity Stones are important. With that, we get to Age of Ultron, which is the culmination of the response to Avengers 1, being the suit of armor around the world that Tony wants. In that, he builds his own destruction, builds a suit of armor that ends up being destruction. So the Avengers have to fight that, and Civil War, and it also introduced Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who we lose. But after that, it ties directly into Civil War. Ant-Man also. With that, we then get to Phase 3, which is setting up, knowing that something cosmic is going to happen and that these Infinity Stones are important. I mean, with that, I have to kind of look. We get Doctor Strange introducing the Time Stone. We get Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 introducing a wider universe, celestial beings, and the build-up of the Guardians family. We also get Spider-Man Homecoming, kind of just starting to prepare to officially pass the torch, which I will talk about more next episode, about passing the torch and stuff like that, but Spider-Man starts introducing passing the torch. We then get Thor Ragnarok, which brings back Hulk and shows the destruction of Asgard, and Asgard trying to prepare and get ready. And then we get Black Panther introducing Wakanda and basically a whole new world within the MCU. After that, we finally get Infinity War, which culminates basically everything from Iron Man 1 all the way up to that moment, and it's only half a movie. When you think about it, Infinity War and Endgame have to be watched together because they are a culmination of a single major event. After that, we get Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp is just to set up how everybody gets out, or how to solve the problem introduced in Infinity War. Same with Captain Marvel, it's to introduce a character that is supposed to be very helpful in solving a problem. Also, why the Avengers are formed and where the Tesseract was and stuff like that. Then we get Endgame, which is the true final culmination of the entire MCU. Endgame could have literally been the final MCU movie, and everything would have been fine. It tied up the story all together, made sense, gave respectful endings to all its characters that were ending there, and set up for a future generation. We then get a nice little epilogue being Spider-Man Far From Home, which is considered one of the worst Spider-Man movies, but I still have nice hope for it. It does kind of feel not like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man movie, but it still, again, shows passing the torch and what happens when you officially have the torch passed to you. So as an epilogue, Far From Home serves a great story. And that's why the MCU is perfect for the first three phases, is we have a coherent story that was at least majoritarily planned from not the beginning, but somewhere in the beginning. We knew that we were going to end up with them fighting Thanos, and we knew that it was going to be some galaxy-holding threat due to stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy being introduced and stuff like that. And with that, Marvel became the biggest franchise of the 2010s. It became something that literally anybody would jump in on and understand. You wouldn't have people that are, oh, I'm not going to get into Star Wars even though there's a cultural zeitgeist about it because Star Wars doesn't matter. Or people with the DCEU where, oh, it's too dark and brooding, or the timeline's too jumbled, or I don't want to sit through 3 hours of a Lord of the Rings movie. You would get literally, oh, I like that actor, or oh, I like that superhero, let's check it out. And Marvel worked in a way that they would litter around certain heroes, either because being famous because of the MCU, or just being famous because they're superheroes, and introduce new heroes to fans. There was a way to kind of make everything feel like you cannot miss a single movie, or even at the time with the Daredevil show, the Netflix shows that may or may not have been canon back then, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which may or may not be canon, people felt like they had to be tied in. It also became such a cultural phenomenon, at least in my domain, that even people that weren't part of the nerd culture would become so obsessed with it and know all the character interactions, all the one-off quips that Marvel had, and just everything like that. So it would make people super obsessed with it, leaving Marvel to basically take over. And with that, like I said, they had that very tight storyline that everything felt interconnected. And then after Endgame, it kind of fell apart. With that, we're going to talk about phases 4 and 5, which we're going to talk next week. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on all my social media down below. It's that Nerd Ryan, signing off.